there are some things that actually seem to permanently increase happiness levels, and people are generally terrible at figuring out what those things are. Because whatever you think will make you happy probably won't make you happy, or it makes you happy for a short time. That new computer, the new car, the raise at work, whatever you think, the cool new house you're going to buy, that makes you happy for a short time, but it goes away after a while. It's called the hedonic treadmill. You have to get more and more to get the same level of happiness. It's sort of like the cocaine of happiness. It doesn't work over the long run to make you happy. Psychological studies for the first 100 years that we did psychological studies tended to be about negative states. The positive states were outnumbered by the negative state studies by 17 to 1 in a survey that was done in 1995, but it started to change around that time. Here's a quote that I found from a comedian that I like pretty well that illustrates the state of these psychological studies. I was going to buy a copy of The Power of Positive Thinking, and then I thought, well, what the hell good would that be? One of the things that we do, those of us who are therapists, I was trained as a psychotherapist then, is we try and restore hope. Because when people come to therapy or when they come for treatment, they're pretty hopeless. They feel pretty discouraged. They feel pretty negative about their prospects. And one of the things that we've known since the 1950s with Jerome Frank, who was one of the theorists in psychotherapy, is that if you give people hope, they tend to do better in treatment. Here's a story he talks about a different approach to people.
I'm doing a new book at the moment called Epiphany, which is based on a series of interviews with people about how they discovered their talent. I'm fascinated by how people got to be there. It's really prompted by a conversation I had with a wonderful woman who most people have never heard of. She's called Gillian Lynn. Have you heard of her? Some have. She's a choreographer, and everybody knows her work. She did Cats and Phantom of the Opera. She's wonderful. I used to be on the board of the Royal Ballet in England, as you can see. And anyway, Gillian and I had lunch one day. I said, how'd you get to be a dancer? And she said it was interesting. When she was at school, she was really hopeless. And the school in the 30s wrote to her parents and said, we think Gillian has a learning disorder. You couldn't concentrate, she was fidgeting. I think now they'd say she had ADHD. Wouldn't you? But this was the 1930s, and ADHD hadn't been invented, at this point, so it wasn't an available condition. People weren't aware they could have that. Anyway, she went to see this specialist. So this oak panel room, and she was there with her mother, and she was led and sat on this chair at the end, and she sat on her hands for 20 minutes while this man talked to her mother about all the problems Gillian was having at school. And at the end of it, because she was disturbing people, their homework was always late and so on, little kid late. In the end, the doctor went and sat next to Gillian and said, Gillian, I've listened to all these things that your mother's told me. I need to speak to her privately. So he said, wait here, we'll be back, we won't be very long, and they went and left her. But as they went out of the room, he turned on the radio that was sitting on his desk. And when they got out of the room, he said to her mother, just stand and watch her. And the minute they left the room, she said she was on her feet, moving to the music. And they watched for a few minutes, and he turned to her mother, and he said, Mrs. Lynn, Gillian isn't sick, she's a dancer. Take her to a dance school. I said, what happened? He said, she did. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. We walked in this room, and it was full of people like me. People who couldn't sit still. People who had to move to think. Who had to move to think. They did ballet, they did tap, they did jazz, they did modern, they did contemporary. She was eventually auditioned for the Royal Ballet School. She became a soloist, she had a wonderful career at the Royal Ballet. She eventually graduated from the Royal Ballet School, found her own company, the Gillian Dance Company, met Andrew Lloyd Webber. She's been responsible for some of the most successful musical theatre productions in history. She's given pleasure to millions, and she's a multi-millionaire. Somebody else might have put her on medication and told her to calm down.
Say you have some stress in your life right now, or a problem in your life right now, you're going through a difficult period. Write yourself a letter from the future in which that's resolved back to your present self. So here's what I tell people. Write a letter from the future self to your current self from a time, a place you're happier and you feel more confident and resolve the issues that are bothering you now. And it could be 5 years from now, 2 months from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever you decide. 5 minutes from now if you want to do that. And describe where you are in that future, what you're doing, what you've gone through to get there, and write about the crucial things you realized that got you there, these kind of crucial changes. And then, of course, because your future self is always smarter and kinder than you, Write yourself some nice advice and some kindly comfort from that future. It turns out that when people have a purpose in their life, and specifically I'm going to be talking about a purpose greater than oneself, that people are happier. Several studies of older Americans find that when they have a sense of purpose in their life, they tend to be happier, and when they don't have a sense, the same thing with college students. Those who are happier in their college careers were compared to those who weren't, and they had a purpose. And again, for me, that was true. My first couple of years, I was just drifting. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't get very good grades. I wasn't very engaged in the process. As soon as I knew what I wanted to do, I wanted to become a therapist. My grades improved, my happiness improved, my sense of purpose improved. And when I found something to do that didn't have to do with me, that had to do with contributing to other people, that really helped. I couldn't think of a more appropriate summary of the happiness research. I've been studying this for a number of years. That's the quickest summary I can find. Have you found joy in your own life? Do you have positive emotions that make you open and available to life, optimistic, willing to try new things, willing to go forward in life? And has your life brought joy to others? Have you contributed to others? This is the simplest formula for happiness. And if you just keep these two questions in mind, you don't have to worry about all that research. This is it. Thank you.